So you want a simple Unity controller which can look, run, jump, sprint and crouch. Then let's go. First of all, here's the code for anyone who just came to copy and paste. You can also find all the code using the links in the description.
Alright, in our almost empty scene here, I'm going to spawn a capsule and make sure the little guy is centered. We're going to pull our capsule out of the ground. And because this is mainly an empty scene, my camera is already centered. We're going to drag the main camera and parent it to our capsule. Make sure your camera is about eye height level in your capsule, as this is where the player will see from. In the project folder, we're going to create a new script. I'm going to call this script player controller because it's, well, what you use to control the player. To check if our player is grounded, make sure to create a new layer called ground. To do so, you just need to click on the layers, add a new layer, call one of the layers ground, then tag any of the objects of the map with the ground layer. Starting off with our script, we're going to start adding our variables, our wake function, and our require component type of character controller. Next, we're going to create our look function. This function uses the mouse's X and Y axis and the look sensitivity in conjunction with the body's X rotation to move the camera and the player's body around. We're going to quickly create a function to put in the start and put our cursor lock state in there. This is so our cursor doesn't leave the window once the game is active. Next, we're going to create our move function, which is going to use our horizontal and vertical axes to move our player using our player's speed. To interact with the ground, we are going to have to add some more variables. We are also going to add 2 lines to our move function to move us down to simulate gravity. We're going to create a new function called spawn ground check, which we are going to put in the starting variables function. The point of this function is to spawn a transform which sits at the base of the player, which we will use later to detect collision with the ground. For our jumping, we're going to create a public jump force float. We're going to create a new function called jump, which will check if we're grounded using the ground check transform, add a slight force downwards if we are grounded, and we'll check if the spacebar has been pressed, which will launch us up at the force of our jump force. We'll put our jump function in the update, and in the start variable function, assign our ground mask, ground layer. Anything that your player is standing on that was tagged as the ground layer, your player will be able to jump from. For our sprinting, we're going to add 2 more variables and create a new function called sprint. In this function, we're checking if the sprint button has been pressed, and if sprinting is true, which will apply the movement speed, which in this case is double the normal movement speed. We are going to put our sprint function into the update, and in our movement function, switch our movement speed with our base speed. Now for our crouching, we're creating our crouching variables. We're going to create another function called crouch. Similar to sprinting, we're going to check if our crouch button is pressed, and if our crouching button is pressed, we're going to slow our movement speed. In this case, it's half our normal movement speed. Also, checking if we're crouching, we're going to lerp the controller's height to half its normal height over time using crouch change speed. Also, in our start variables, we're going to save the base height. We are also going to move our crouching and sprinting functions out of update and into our moving function, so that we can check if we're already crouching or already sprinting. We can't sprint while crouching. Technically, you've done the controller here and it's finished, but what I do here is add a little field of view effect to happen when you're sprinting, to add just a little bit more immersion. Quickly just doing some cleaning up with my variables. I'm also going to add 2 new field of view variables and a new serialized private bool. Make sure to set the base field of view and the starting variables. In our sprint function, we're going to add an if statement. Similar to crouching, it checks if the player is sprinting, and if sprinting is true, we'll lerp the field of view out, and if sprinting is false, we'll lerp the field of view in. To have the field of view effect happen while sprinting, select this checkbox, and there you have it, a player controller that you can look, run, jump, sprint and crouch. That's it. Bye.